Boy, it's been a while, and there's a lot of emotions for a lot of different reasons. So let's get into all that, right now. Greetings and welcome to this episode on Geeks First. There's only one proper way to start this video. Team! Yeah, I know it's a little late. And, I know it's probably felt like I've been absent from the internet for a little bit. But there's a lot going on. And for better or for worse, your favorite TCG may go through phases that may make you question whether or not you've made the right choices. Today we're going to talk about, with no script, just a little bit of why some of these feelings exist and what the next steps might actually be, especially after, well, going to Gen Con. A lot of Gen Con. Greetings and welcome back to Geeks First. Today, it feels like a bittersweet return because there's just a myriad of things I'd love to talk about. From new TCGs like Lorcana, to Flesh and Blood, Pokemon, Magic, all sorts of stuff. The problem really boils down to producing the content that I feel is acceptable with what I deem high quality content. While I could have cranked out several videos because we have recorded almost every box opening that we've made, I've discovered that that's not really my area of focus, even though I do enjoy cracking packs, and the gambling premium, especially with Lord of the Rings, taught me a lesson, and that lesson is that a lot of these TCGs are now designed to, well, basically make sure that you fail financially, because basically they're lottery tickets, and it's very disturbing. That's not really the point of this video, and my point here is that a lot of things in my life have changed in the last 60 days. I want to produce more content. I'd like to create a better schedule for me to be able to make sure that I keep myself honest. But watching the amount of views you get, and knowing that obviously you're a small channel, versus the time, dedication, and effort to put into editing, well, you can really tell. Yes, it has been a while. And boy, let me tell you, a lot of things have changed in the last 60 days. So while it may not have been that long that I've been gone, well, I will say that we have seen at least one individual exit the community, and that definitely struck me much harder than it should have. For those of you that don't know, the Tall Timmy has not only said that he's leaving Flesh and Blood, but he also removed all of his content on his YouTube channel. And I will not speculate any further than that, but it is sad to see that that content at which I enjoyed watching and interacted with and enjoyed simply is gone and has vanished. Now, outside of that, other big things that have happened were, I had a computer crash. Well, it's not great, right? When that happens, footage is lost, things are weird, all sorts of stuff. And coupling that with my day job, which obviously is very important to continue to keep things going, because there is absolutely no way this is currently paying for anything other than me just having fun, so don't think I'm making any money with this. So I had to focus on the things that mattered the most to keep the lights going so that I could sit back down here 60 days later and film this, instead of having to liquidate everything I own. Now, aside from that, things are great. Got to go to Gen Con. There was all sorts of really interesting TCGs there. And I think that I need to look at focusing inward on myself and ask myself the question, what would I like this channel to be? And this is a question that I've been kind of beating around in my head, because even as far back as 2018, 2019, when we were recording videos, we have hundreds, if not several hundred videos that have been recorded, cataloged, and exist on a hard drive, but have not had the effort put into editing, because filming is the easy part. Editing, well, depending on your style of content, that is the secret sauce. And while I have hundreds and hundreds of hours of footage of really cool and awesome pulls and motions from every set, Pokemon, Magic, and TCGs alike, even Flesh and Blood, I will release them, but I need to start looking at where do I want to go with this channel? What do I want to do? Do I want to go for the board game review because we play a lot of board games? Do I want to go for the TCG reviews because I am dabbling in quite a bit of TCGs? Got to look at Primal. I got to look at Grand Archive. There was Nostalgics. Obviously Battle Spirit Sagas, as well as Digimon, One Piece, and I believe Dragon Ball Super were all at Gen Con. Sorcery was at Gen Con. A lot of these games, whether indie or up-and-coming or existing, existed at Gen Con. However, there was one game at which I focused a lot of effort, time, and energy on that was severely underrepresented, and that was Flesh and Blood. Whether for particular reasons or not, obviously the lack of presence made it really hard to really focus on any content coverage of Flesh and Blood there. Other than the fact that as I ran around and looked to many booths, again, I'm not trying to dig at Flesh and Blood here, or Legend Story Studios to be more specific, but the number of vendors that said, no, I'm sorry, I don't carry that product, or, well, we felt like we weren't going to bring it because there were no events for that product, really outshined the fact that only one vendor, I believe it was Star City Games, even had 5 or 10 cards total, and they were all legendaries, fables, and very high-end cards in their high-end Magic case. But if I wanted to build a deck, if I wanted to find cards, well, that market sadly was not the market for Flesh and Blood. The dominant force, however, was Lorcana, and that was an intriguing, crazy environment. Gen Con not only, in my opinion, brought out the absolute worst of the worst in some individuals, but at the same time brought out the best in others, and for all good intentions, better or worse, the events panned out as they did, and some people got their product, some people didn't. We were lucky enough to be able to obtain a booster box, some starters, and working with a friend, we were able to open one of his, so we have some content for that. The question really boils down to focus of the channel. Their interview with Brian Gottlieb, I believe, was on Red Zone Rogue's podcast, or in that case, it was not Arsenal Pass. It was Living Legends podcast. I apologize. A lot going on in my head here. He gave a very interesting statement. And again, it's a great statement. I like where they're going. I think it can prove to be exciting. However, in my personal setup, I have to reevaluate my situation because his statement really resonated with me. And he said something to the effect of, and I do not know the exact quote, so I apologize here. Maybe I can find the segment and insert it here with the editing I will do for this video. But basically, he said something to the tune of, every Flesh and Blood set going forward is going to be an experiment, and that experiment, just don't have any expectations for a expansion set or a core set. And I like that. I think at the core, that's a cool concept, a really neat thing. The new set, Bright Lights, I am excruciatingly happy to see, and I cannot wait for that to come out. But the last 2 sets, where I went kind of full bore and purchased a lot of product to be able to find singles and work on all that stuff, something didn't really work out in that equation, which I'm not quite following. And almost every legendary and other Majestic plummeted in price to a point at which it was really hard to even attempt to break even on the initial investment, so the ROI really wasn't there. There is a smaller community than even Magic, I can say that with confidence, and with Pokemon. But when you start looking at this for who needs what and how to deliver that product to them, how to provide a service, how to look at what I can provide to them, I'm going to like UPF. I'm going to love multiplayer formats. I'm going to enjoy the new product that's coming. That's going to be the Professor's product coming very soon. Or technically, I guess it's like a UPF and a boxed set. That came from an ICV magazine. I mean, right here, this. And it's right there. It's on that page. It's exciting stuff. I'm excited. It may not sound like extremely excited. I'm still exhausted from Gen Con, so my voice is recovering. But all that's to say, I need to make some personal decisions on how to handle content going forward, because I want to produce high quality content. I want to produce educational content. I want to produce tutorials. And I'd like to have intelligent conversations with folks to be able to drive excitement into TCGs, board games, card games, and the general community. But in order to do that, it's a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of connections, a lot of people that I have to work with, and a lot of self-focus to spend the time to edit these videos. Because for every 1 or 2 minutes of actual on-screen content, I've listened to it 2 to 3 times. Once when I'm speaking it, probably once when I'm doing my initial scrub through, probably a third time when I'm doing my second scrub through, and probably a fourth to final proof. So for a 10-minute video, that's really just 40 minutes and just listening. That doesn't count the hours of editing that exist there. And I won't go into the explanation of why some people just kind of overlook this, but you've heard other content creators talking about burnout. I don't think it's a burnout thing for me. It's that I would like to have a level of quality or a bar that I hold myself to. I have professional equipment. I've worked for other shows and I've done professional stuff, but a one-man crew is really, really hard. And I don't want this to sound like I'm complaining. It is complaining. But it's a reassessment of priorities to produce and provide either a lower cadence schedule, where I will produce a good quality video with add-ons, such as the Lorcana How to Play demo deck that I would be interested in doing, or such as Battle Spirit Saga Learn to Play, or such as Flesh and Blood UPF How To. Those are all videos that I have been rummaging around, writing notes, getting scripts together, figuring stuff out for. But if I dedicate myself to staying just a Flesh and Blood channel, I'm not sure that I'll have as much content as needed, because the amount of financial talk in that world that exists and the player in the professional base that exists, they're not interested in my content. And that's fine. What I want to do is I want to be a gateway. I think I have discovered I enjoy being a teacher. I enjoy explaining things. I feel like I'm decent at it. And I feel that the value of education and also intrinsically comparing different games helps. It can get people into those games. So whether that's comparing Flesh and Blood to Magic, Magic to Pokemon, Pokemon to Flesh and Blood, understanding that different keywords and terminologies might be similar mechanics in other games and how they interact, or as an example with Lorcana, there's certain mechanics that are very similar to other mechanics in other games. And just knowing that those mechanics exist and the interrelation between those mechanics makes it feel like I have a lot more value to be able to explain something to an audience, yourself, and go from there. So this video may not get many views, and that's really not the point, but this is more for myself trying to make a promise to myself that I'm going to do better at making content, and that I will produce high quality content, because the hand cam slap on the face, pump out video, I don't think is my style. I'd rather do fewer videos and have those highly edited, or at least decently edited, and go from there. So we sit here in the studio with the backdrop as is. We've done a lot of cleaning, got a whole table open in front of me. We started doing some D&D as well, which is not necessarily part of Flesh and Blood, but in a weird way it actually is, because there's a lot of character stats and things that I could see how they interrelate if you really go down that path. But there's some stuff. I also really want to continue the lore. The Flesh and Blood lore podcast that we had began, where it was Fablorian, that ball has been dropped a little bit, but the amount of lore and the cadence isn't there to support that long term as I started mapping it out. I had mapped out a total of about 10 additional sessions, which was 10 weeks, and we would have run out as a not proper term, but we would have been stretching what we wanted to discuss. And I think that we need to let that lore mature a little bit more. We are going to continue to do something, but the cadence needs to be a little bit less, And I feel like we need to do a little bit more research on some of the things. And as these products come out, as sets come out, as lore gets released, as new articles drop, that lore repository will build and we can leverage that. So that's part of what I'm looking at. All this is to say that I really like a lot of the folks in the Flesh and Blood community. It was fantastic to see so many people at Baltimore. And by the way, this is a personal call out and an apology to Bearish. I am sorry that I have not got that video that we filmed and edited up. That was on that drive that had a little accident, the crash. I have since recovered the footage from one of the cameras, not the other one. I'm still working on that. Good news is I've pieced everything back together to where I have enough audio in that I can release that video. But I think the B-roll I shot may not be there. And it is bloody disheartening to know that, like, you put all this effort, energy, and time into something, and that's what you just... anyways, it's there's... I'm sorry. So, all this is to say that I really like making content. I think there's joy that I see. I just actually filmed a video recently with a friend, Melissa, and she wanted to know more about Flesh and Blood, so I figured instead of me just talking through it, I videoed me explaining all the different heroes and the different sets and where to get it from. And that is a great gateway, right? It's a great way to explain to somebody how to get into the game. And that is content I'm proud of. And that's the stuff that I want to do. I'm passionate about that. And if I'm passionate about it, it'll show, right? If I'm not passionate about it, it won't show. It also doesn't help that certain games that are no longer around, such as Battle of Champions or Genesis Battle of Champions, I was working to build some content toward that, and as soon as that went completely south, I kind of lost some motivation on some other things because it was kind of a spiral. Outside of that, my neighbor, Roy, rest in peace, buddy, he passed away from cancer recently, and cancer sucks. I've lost a lot of friends to cancer, and that put me in a dark place for a little bit. But yeah, so there's a lot. There's a lot of conversation here. Again, this is really more for me, not for you, but I'm glad you're here with me. If you're here, thank you. This is just a lot of kind of things that have been rattling around my brain. And all that's to say is that I will put in more effort, especially because I am very excited about this Bright Light set from Flesh and Blood. I'm very excited about some of the Magic the Gathering Universes Beyond crossover with Jurassic Park. I'm relearning how to play Commander. I'm relearning how to play Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm learning how to play One Piece. I'm learning how to play Battle Spirit Saga. I'm learning Sorcery. I'm learning Lorcana. As I learn all these different games, I would like to produce those videos and have them available, not only to document my journey for later in life, because this is the internet, it's forever, but I'd also love to be able to share that, and if you have questions, help you through some of those questions. So thank you. Thank you for listening. And if you are here, you definitely are one of the dedicated few who, I would say, I'm very grateful to listen to these videos. Because again, analytics can put you in dark places. And I believe Sloop Dupe, or Wes, said it best. Sometimes you do something and you put all your heart and soul into it, and you realize that not a lot of people watch it. And you think you've really screwed up. But all that is a way for you to learn that that's not the way to do it. And as Mr. Beast would say, your first 100 videos are going to suck, and all you can do is try and try and try again. And on your 101st video, continue to grow and learn. That's a summary of an interview I was watching a little bit ago. And that was the inspiration for why I'm sitting back down in front of this camera right now. Because I kept telling myself, it's almost like an anxiety of sitting back down and starting up again. Once you're running, it's easy. But it's that sitting down, hitting that record button and going. That's what I need. So here we go. We're off to the races again. Let's start making some content. It may not be an exclusive Flesh and Blood channel anymore, but by golly, it's going to be one hell of a fun one. Until next time, may your games be fun and your friendships grow. Cheers.